after the resurrection, Gaul. June 2014. Beloved one, I will continue with my life story. What I share with you is how I viewed my life. There may be others who will say, but that's not what I've heard, and that is okay. I would not stand in front of someone and tell them that they are wrong. I only tell you what I remember and how I experienced it. After the crucifixion and on the day of resurrection, when I came out of the tomb and was in my radiance, more than I had expected that I would be, I had to adjust the light frequency so that ones could see me and behold me as the human being they had known. You have the story in your holy writings about my joining two men walking on the road to Emmaus, and I was asking them, what's the news? What's been going on? They told me that a great teacher, a rabbi, had been crucified along with two others on the day before. As I walked and I talked with them, they realized who I was. I said to them, that which I can do and have done, you can do also, although they did not quite believe me. But in later times, they also resurrected the body, because they knew that the body is a creation of the divine energy. I went back to Bethany, where the upper room was, the mansion where we met on the night before the crucifixion and ate the Passover meal. I went back to Bethany, which was the home of Martha and Mary and Lazarus, and I joined with the disciples, with my mother, with Miriam, with every one of the friends who wanted to be reminded that I was no longer in the tomb. But Bethany was not what you would call a safe place to stay, because it is very near to Jerusalem, and there were rumors that I had not died upon the cross. In fact, there were rumors that it was not I who was crucified, that someone else had taken my place. So we did not stay there very long. We traveled north to go to Nazareth, but we did not go that far. We went to the area known as Arimathea, where Miriam's uncle, Joseph, lived. Now, Joseph was quite a business person, and he had many ships which traveled to Britannica, Britain, as you know it now, where he had tin mines and did a great trade in mining. This is where we stayed for a while, and as the rumors kept going that the rabbi had not been finished yet, and ones of the soldiers were still on the lookout for any personage who might be me or associated with me, it was a time of opportunity for great fear for the ones who had followed me, the disciples and the multitudes. If they were to say that they were friends of mine, it was a time of opportunity for fear. So there were many who were keeping quiet, and there was a quiet search for anything that would be unusual. The soldiers were out, so we knew that we needed to be quiet about where we were. We also knew that in time we would probably need to leave the area. There was guidance that said, you will travel and meet other ones in other lands. Miriam agreed, and the two children who had been born in the time in between my return from India and Tibet and before I began the ministry were quite adventurous, so they were okay with it as well. Now, Joseph of Arimathea had several ships, great ships which could transport the minerals that he was mining. They were sailing ships at that time using the power of the wind, not the technology that you have nowadays, and he said, you may use one of my ships. I have a ship that is going to Britain very soon, and if you and Miriam and Benjamin and Sarah want to go on that ship, I will arrange it for you. So he did, and I knew that it would be the safest course, the quietest course, that which would not disrupt the ongoing activities of the multitudes who had been so enthralled with my message and with the disciples. So I thought, if I leave, then they can get back to what they remember of the teachings and lead a more quiet life. All of the rumors will die down. So in time we went to what was known then as the seaport of Joppa. As you know, all of the towns and geography have changed names down through the ages, and so what was the small but very active seaport of Joppa has become part of what is now your Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv has had a great population influx, and it has incorporated or taken in quite a bit of the countryside that used to be smaller towns and a small seaport, but a very busy one, and that is where Joseph of Arimathea had his fleet of 4 large sailboats, as you would call them, although they did not really look like the sailboats that you understand in this day and time, because they had the great tall masts of sails. And so we went on board, Miriam and Benjamin and Sarah and I. My mother wanted to come, and she did come, but later. She came later and joined us. We had quite an adventure, because we were sailing to certain islands, certain seaports, as the men on the sailing ship would need to take on supplies. We were to be quiet while they went to the various seaports, because it was not to be published that we were on board. We went first to Cyprus where the men picked up some supplies, and then we started out on the great journey to the next location where we would be stopping. But we were blown off course by a spring storm. This happened several times, so that there came a time when there was not enough of the food supplies on board. They had hoped to stop at another one of the seaports, but we went farther to the south than expected. The men were quite concerned. What were they going to do to feed the crew and also our family? So I said, "You do not have to worry. You can manifest it. Just hold out your hand and know that the bread is going to be there." They looked at me like, I don't think I believed this. But they were game for it because they were hungry, and the pains in the tummy spoke louder than the questioning. So they held out the hands, closed the eyes and hoped, and it happened, so that all of the men on board in time were fed. It did not happen all at once, because some were more stubborn in their thinking, so it took them a bit more time to accept that this could happen. We traveled quite a long time aboard ship. Sarah was quite young. Benjamin was of an age where he was quite interested in how the sails worked and how the ship would be steered, and how everything about sailing would be happening. He took it all in, because he was quite curious and quite ingenious about what he understood. After a long while, and it did seem to be a long time because, again, the course which was set was not always the course that the winds wanted to follow, we came to the southern part of what was known then as Gaul, which you know now as France, and the Mediterranean area of southern France. We landed at a very small seaport because, again, we did not want publicity. We got off there, and then the ships continued on their trip to Britannica to do their mining. It was an adventure for Miriam, for me, for the children. It was an adventure in consciousness as well as human, because we were traveling with the bodies, and yet at the same time the consciousness had expanded with the crucifixion and the resurrection and with the ascension. That is a good point to bring up right now, the ascension, because yes, I did allow the molecules of the body to become as light, which they are in the normal state, and I did allow the ascension to happen. But I did not stay ascended away from everyone. That has been part of the story that has been handed down to you, that I, because I was so holy, ascended unto heaven, unto the Father, and that to this day I sit at the right hand of the Father looking down at you and judging all of your activities. Well, that is not true. First of all, I do not judge. Everything is your choice to experience, and, hear this well, nothing is a wrong choice. Everything that you choose brings you to the next step in understanding the expansiveness of yourself. So there are no wrong choices. Your religious philosophical orders would have you do penance for many of the choices, but I do not judge. I did not stay ascended away from you. I came back. I wanted to be with you, and I knew there was much more to life, much more to the adventure. But I want you to hear it well, that truly I can go nowhere away from you. Always I am with you. I am at your right hand. I am at your left hand. I am at the right hand of the Father. I am at the left hand of the Father. I even sit upon his lap, as you do as well. There is no separation, although in the human understanding you see bodies and you see collections of energy and you say, this is all there is. But right beyond the outline of the body, your scientists, your photographers have been showing you the aura of the energy around you which is not contained within the body. It is beyond the body and extends out as far as you can imagine. So they are already proving to you that your energy does not stop with the edge of the skin. You are, as we have said many times, energy forever ongoing, forever creating. So we landed at a small seaport in southern France slightly to the west of the Rhone River which goes up into Germanicus, but it was part of France, or Gaul as it was called then, and we stayed on the outskirts of that seaport for a while and just gave out the story that we had traveled from relatives' homes slightly to the east. Ones welcomed us into the small village and we stayed there as long as it was easy to do. We knew that we are the energy of divinity, of light, and that we are every moment recreating the body, so we did not age. Now, Benjamin and Sarah wanted to age. They wanted to grow up, so they did. But Miriam and I liked being in the prime of life, and so we just continued in what you would now call your 30s and 40s, very healthy and strong, enjoying life. When it became noticeable that we were not aging like the other ones in the village, we said that we had relatives that we had to go visit in other parts of Gaul or Germanicus or any of the other areas. This was done over time. It was not immediate, but as time would progress and as it became a little more noticeable, we would move on. There were other biological children who were born to us, because we loved each other and because we wanted to be creative, as you have done in your lives. We had the biological children, but we also had ones of the village that if the parents had been deceased for some reason or other, we took them into our household, so we had quite a family after a while, and we watched them grow up and play with each other, and fight with each other and show their personalities. We shared with the children who were open to it what we knew of reality, capital R. Now, not all of them were interested. As you have nowadays, there are some of your young ones and some of your teenagers who have focused upon other things, and they did not have an interest in knowing anything beyond the farming, the chickens, the goats, and they were quite happy, so we left them being happy. But other ones would sit and ask questions. If they asked questions, we would answer. We did a good bit of traveling. We even went up into Britannica and visited the mines of Joseph. By the time we got to Britannica, Joseph had deceased the body, but was very much in spirit and came with us. We could see him, we could interact with him, we could talk with him, and he was very interested to see the development of the mining that he had seen as a younger person when he first started his business. So he was there. Many of our friends back in Nazareth, Mount Carmel, Jerusalem, Bethany, Bethlehem, ones that we had known, allowed the body to decease and came and joined us. And because we knew that nobody ever leaves you, it is not possible, we could see them. We could interact with them. If they wanted to, they could be born again into the physical, and some did, or they could just hang out as the spiritual beings that they are. This covered what you would see to be around 150 to 200 years. Now, I have said to you other times that my lifetime was 600 to 700 years as you measure linear time, and that was because I was enjoying life in the physical, although I knew I was not limited to the physical. So it gave me time to travel all over Holy Mother Earth and interact with ones living in those areas, and that is why you have the stories, the legends that Mary, my Miriam, has been in various parts of France, Germany, Poland, all of your countries, because we did travel there, and she did leave her mark, and I did also in various parts. So you have various stories and legends even in this day and time. Many of the children came with us as they grew up. Many of the children did not. They stayed in their villages because they made friends, they made marriages, and they stayed in the village where they were happy, where they had been born, where they had history, and lived out what you would call the normal length of time of a human life. And then perhaps they would come back and assume a form and find us. There were most amazing happenings, such as when you would know someone from a certain village and you would supposedly leave them behind as you traveled on, which we did, and you knew that they were happy living their life. They found a village girl. She was so beautiful that there was no way that he could leave her, and so you traveled on, and later this same energy would come in a different form as a friend in another part of Holy Mother Earth, and there would be a recognition that, yes, I have known you before. I know you, I understand you. There is an energy that is familiar. And you have felt that in this lifetime. You have met up with ones and instantly you felt at home with them. Instantly you were able to speak from your heart with them and they understood. Instantly there was that feeling of family. And you have wondered, how can that be? Well, it is because, yes, that energy you have known before, and that energy may change and take different shapes, but it is still the energy of the Beloved One that you have known. So be it. Yeshua ben Joseph, Jesus. Channeled through Judith Coates. www.oakbridge.org